Hello, welcome to Board Game Bonkers. I'm JC, and today we're going to take a look at our top 6 board games that we take on holiday with us as the holiday season is coming up. So soon, well, it's a good time to cover this top 6 list. Now, I'm not saying these are the best games or amazing games. I want to be very clear on this. It varies considerably from person to person because depending on method of transport, how long you're going for, who you're going with, and the purpose of the holiday as well. So, for example, if I'm going on holiday to a board game convention, then obviously I'm going to be taking board games with me that's relevant for the convention, or I might leave space in my suitcase to bring board games back with me. If I'm going on holiday to a beach, the type of board games I'm going to take will be completely different from compared to a holiday when taking the children with us, in which case those games will vastly differ in terms of complexity, size, and length of play. So with that taken into consideration, I'm going to let you know my criteria for this top 6 list was games that I take on holiday, and it always involves taking the children with us. So that means these games are not going to be complex or light. They're simple, straightforward, and I generally play within 15-20 minutes, although there's one that plays a lot longer than that, and arguably 2 of them. So with that out of the way, let's start with our number 6, and this is in a particular order. I'm going to start with my least favourite and then move up to my most favourite. So starting with number 6, which is Tinder Blocks. And it's quite interesting because we tend to take this with us, not because we think it's a great game, but because often when we go to certain holiday places, particularly in the UK, they're normally holiday clubs. And what that means is there's a large building with activities and events that happen. And sometimes we're waiting 10 to 15 minutes or so between activities or shows that are happening in the clubhouse, which means sometimes we bring this out. And incidentally, the one year we didn't take this with us, the kids asked, well, can we play Tinder Blocks because we're waiting there for 10, 15 minutes not doing anything. And what you're doing essentially in this game is building a fire camp. And in that fire camp, you've got these little blocks you're building. You've got tweezers. So you've got to use your tweezers to get the blocks out. So as you can see, you've got these tweezers. And you're trying to get these blocks out and then place them onto the card, which is a fireplace, and pile them on top of each other. So it's very dexterity in terms of balancing it. But it can be a little fiddly because I'm just to ping off the tweezers, but it's a quick, simple 5 to 10 minute game, quick game. If you like your deck style and tactile games, then certainly check this out. Very simple, straightforward. My least favourite of the lot because it's simply, I'm not a huge fan of dexterity or kind of tactile games. It's not for me. There's very little or no extra strategy to it. But listen, you've got young kids, you might enjoy this. Check it out. Cinder Blocks. So moving on to my number 5, we've got Deep Sea Adventure. Now, this is a kind of push your luck game as you've got this treasure laid out, and what you'll be doing is you're in a submarine, you're diving down the depths into the ocean, picking up treasure. So as you roll the die, it's only from 1 to 3 on the die, so you might get lucky, you might get a 3, or you might get a 1. So you roll on 2 of these dice, and then you move the number of spaces indicated. When you land on a token, then they're all face down. You then decide whether you pick it up or not, but you can't see what the treasure is because each amount is different. The deeper you go, the more lucrative that treasure is. So what you're trying to do is get back to the oxygen before the communal oxygen supply runs out. That's because you're all sharing the oxygen supply. And the way it works is when you collect treasure, the next time you will reduce the oxygen by the number of treasure that you have. You have 2 treasure, then you reduce oxygen by 2. You might think, well, that's not too bad. But it gets tougher because when you return back to the submarine, you've got to reduce your number of spaces that are indicated on the dice by the number of treasure that you have. So you roll a 1 and a 1 in each of the die, and you have 2 treasure, then you can't move. So you have to make that decision how much treasure to pick up, look at the oxygen supply, work it out how long it take you to get up there. But you can also drop treasure as well on your way up, so you can reduce the load. It's quite a simple push your luck game. Kids enjoy it. We have quite a bit of fun with this, but it's kind of gotten to the point where it's quite a lot now. It's getting a little bit tedious. And certainly there's another type of version out there, I think it's called the Moon or something, which we'll look to get. But this is quite fun and simple, easy. It's compact and small, very lightweight as well. So perhaps you're on a holiday and plain, easy to take with you, as is Tinder Blocks. So let's move in to my number 4. I think we're in number 4, 654. Yes, we are. So we've got Love Letter, and this is a card game, classic card game. You've got different types and versions of love letter, and this is the original, the first one. And simple card game. You play a card. You've got a card in your hand. You draw a card and play one against your opponent. And the cards do different things. So, for example, you might have a card that looks at your opponent's hand, for example. We've got here the priest, where it says, look at another player's hand. We've got the baron. It says, you and another player secretly compare hands. The player with the lowest value is out. As you can see, you've got a value on the top left of the card. You've got the guard, where you can guess what the card the other player might have, as long as it's not a guard card. So you've got different cards that do different things. There's a little bit of kind of trick taking there, but I really do enjoy this game. It does get a little bit samey when you play it a lot, and I feel the time length is too long with too many players, which is why I tend to stick with just 4 players or less. But I think it works scales really well with a number of different player counts. So definitely check it out. Love Letter. It's a really good, fun, simple, straightforward game. So let's move in to my next one, and I think we're on to, I've now lost count. 6, 5, 4, 3. We're into a third one. It'd help if I get my mathematic head in here. So our third one is Quicks. Now, if you like kind of bingo, you've got kids that like bingo, this is a really cool game. So what you're doing, you're rolling dice. You've got 2 white dice. You'll be combining those both numbers, and every player can mark off on their sheet that number. You have different numbered rolled colours. For example, you have blue, you have green, you have yellow and red. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to score off those on your pad. And what you can also do as well, once you've done that, the player will then select a white and a coloured die, and they will then score off whatever that combined number is on their own pad, but all the other players don't. And it goes to the next player, and they roll all the dice, of which, as you can see, there is a lot of dice to roll. And they'll be allocating the 2 white dice, so we're adding them up, and then all players will take away that number on their pad in any row they like. And then, again, they'll pick a white die, and any coloured die, could be a red, for example, and they will take that, score that number off on their pad. It's quite a fun little game, and what you'll also be able to do as well, which is quite fun, is once you reach the end point, wherever the lock is, as long as you've got at least 5 or more scored off on that particular row, it doesn't matter in which order, you'll be able to take that die away. So for example, if I had 5 scored off in the red and I managed to get the last number of 12, then I'll be able to take away the red die. That means that other players can't score in that row. It's quite fun and interesting. I really do enjoy that. And here's a completed card, as you can see. Simple, straightforward. It's got that kind of bingo-esque type of feel to it, but I think this is done in a fun way, and I quite enjoy it. I have quite a lot of fun with it, and the kids as well. So let's move into my number 2. I got that one right. This is Mintworks, and the reason why we take this on holiday, it's small, it's compact, and it packs quite a lot in the small tin. My daughter also really enjoys this. It's a worker placement game. We've got cards laid out, and you'll be placing these mints, look like mints, and you're placing the tokens out onto the worker placement spaces. And so it's different cards, and what you'll be doing is acquiring cards and placing them into your neighbourhood. So essentially, you're building a neighbourhood, and you're trying to score up to 7 or more points if you can. The first player up to 7, that triggers the end of the game. And it's simple, straightforward, takes about 20 minutes at the very most to play. And there's also a couple of promo cards you get for cooperative play as well. And there's a solo version in here as well, so you can play it solo. I like this. My daughter likes it. It's simple, it's fun. As a game, I probably always keep because it's so compact and easy to take wherever you like. Quite difficult to play in the plane because you've got quite a few cards to lay out. Let's move in to my number 1. This is Ascension Eternal. This is a 2-player version of Ascension. Love this game. This deck building game. So you have 6 cards laid out, and you'll either be fighting against monsters, there'll be monster cards laid out, or you'll be acquiring heroes or constructs. What's quite unique about this is the constructs, because once you've got them in your hand, you then play it, that remains on the table in front of you for the remainder of the game, unless another player destroys that. And what you'll be trying to do is collect gems. There's a pool of gems, but also cards that you acquire throughout the duration of the game will have gem on the card to indicate how many gems that card will initiate, which means you'll get them at the end of the game. And scoring points, once that pool of gems has disappeared, then that triggers the end of the game. You acquire those gems through defeating monsters, or there's a card laid out, the cultist, where you can go and you can gain a gem from defeating the cultist. It's a strength of 2. So you have these hero cards, you'll be battling against monsters, acquiring new heroes, you'll be acquiring constructs to lay out, it gives you these powerful abilities. I really like how simple and straightforward this deck building game is. Well, it uses the classic mechanisms, but it does it in a nice smooth way. It's one of the best fun deck building games I have ever played, and I highly recommend it. It's straightforward. It's a game my daughter can pick up quite easily as well. It plays in about 45 minutes. Really, we can play in about half an hour. It really depends on how experienced you are playing this game. And it combines with all the other Accentures. I highly recommend checking this out, Ascension Eternal. So that's my top 6. And what's quite interesting, it varies depending on the type of holiday, as I explained at the start. So for example, if I'm on the plane, I'm not going to be taking heavy board games, am I? I'm going to be taking small, compact games. But what I like as well, if I'm in a plane, I want to play a particular type of game, I'd play something like this, because I don't really need a lot of space. I just take the cards out, I can roll the dice in this lid, and I've got the pads to write on. That's all I need, and I can have them on my lap. So that's quite handy, as well as, which might be quite tricky, is playing tinder blocks on a plane, because if it's shaky, that's going to collapse. But it tends to be smaller types of games we take on holiday with us, because they're compact, they don't take too much space in your suitcase, and games that are quite easy, straightforward, and quick to play. Because when we're on holiday, what we haven't got time for, particularly when you've got children, is you haven't got a lot of downtime to play board games, because you're constantly with the children. And when you've got children and they're on holiday, believe you me, they're up all day and night. So it makes it difficult to get games to the table, which is why we use simple, straightforward games that the kids can get involved in if they've maybe got nothing to do, 15-20 minutes. But generally, the way we work is that after a day out on the holiday, where it's jam-packed with activities, we're really knackered by the end of the day, which means we don't want to play a heavy game at all. We want to play something light and simple, which is why they're all straightforward, quick 15-20 minute games, most of them. But let me know in your comments down below, what kind of games do you take on holiday when you go away? Perhaps you've got a different criteria. Perhaps you haven't got kids and you take heavier games. Let me know in the comments down below. It'll be interesting to find out as well what you lot out there, what games you pick, particularly if you've got kids as well. Does it differ depending on the type of holiday you've got? And does it differ depending on the mode of transport as well? We might do some other videos breaking this up into what games you may take with you depending on the mode of transport as you go on holiday. And now, if you haven't already done so, please do consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. And please give our videos a like if you do enjoy them. That brings us to the end. Until next time, take care.
This is Bonkers.